It's just over 60 days in my forest floor gardening experiment, and I'm here to harvest the first vegetables. Will they be the only vegetables? I actually don't think so, but I'll talk about it in the video. And today I'm going to be harvesting some of these beautiful zucchinis. And this plant particularly was planted by my dog. I will also explain that in this video. And I'll go through this forest floor gardening experiment and explain the good, the bad, and what I might have done differently. And then I'm gonna pop into the kitchen if you wanna come by, and I'm gonna make some double chocolate milled wheat zucchini muffins. Trick to getting these zucchinis without a knife is to twist. So in the forest floor garden, what I did is I was trying to mimic the forest floor. Some people call it the back to Eden gardening method, but in the back to Eden gardening method, they use wood chips. And here I'm actually using mulch. So these are different varieties of trees that have been mulched up, and we had a lot available. So I wanted to use this to suppress the weeds and really try and get away from plastic, which is what I've been using as a weed barrier for years. While my garden does look really beautiful, I love how tidy it is. It's actually not the best garden I've ever had. So we'll start with that. I actually planted quite a bit more than what you see here. I planted beets, carrots, lots of different kinds of varieties, lots of sunflowers, plenty of veggies, pickles, everything that you kind of would plant in your typical garden. And what I have now is lovely. I have the beginnings of sunflowers, some zucchinis, and some squash, and that's about it. Oh yes, and my beautiful Jerusalem artichokes. I've had Jerusalem artichokes for years, and they just came up through the mulch, 6 to 12 inches of mulch, which is crazy. You can see here some of the plants are just incredibly tiny. I have nasturtiums and different sunflower varieties that are almost just non-existent. So this sunflower was planted at the same time as this sunflower, which is just past my waist here. The other thing to note is that I actually might not even get a sunflower before the end of the season. We have a late growing season, so it could happen, but it might not because everything was a lot slower to start. The forest floor gardening method, the mulch really retained the moisture and the cool soil temperatures, and we kind of had a bit of a colder, wet spring. So that was a really big factor in what happened here. In this part of the garden, we actually had quite the happy accident. My dog chewed up the box of seeds that I had set aside as I was gardening, and he scattered seeds in this part of the garden that I actually hadn't planted. And surprisingly, these are the only carrot that germinated, and they're also my first zucchinis. He's a challenging little puppy because he's a puppy, but he also did us a really big favor. So I've actually been thinning these carrots. I could probably thin them again as they get bigger, and we might actually get a carrot. I was also gifted a few tomato plants from a friend, and when I first planted them, they were shocked and they were so mad at me. But I have, you probably can't see it, but a few little baby tomatoes coming in. So we might even get some tomatoes this year. Given that I've had giant gardens in the past that have been so abundant that they've kept me in the kitchen for weeks at a time, I'm not really sad that this garden hasn't done the best. It's my first garden after quitting my job. I kind of had this corporate burnout situation, and so having less stress is really nice. And this garden is so easy to weed. That is definitely the biggest perk. I can weed this garden in 5 minutes. The weeds have to travel through so much mulch that they're incredibly weak, and you just wiggle and pull and they come right out. It's been a really easy, stress-free process. Am I sad that I don't have tons of veggies pouring out of the kitchen? Not really. I got a few nasturtiums and they really warm my heart. Hopefully I get some sunflowers, which is the other part. And then I'm just gonna go to the farmer's market and buy veggies. And I have been already, and I'm not sad about supporting local farmers at all. Luckily, we have other food on the property. This is a transparent apple tree, and it is in overdrive this year with many beautiful apples that are ready. And if you're familiar with a transparent apple, which I wasn't when I moved here, they brown immediately. They'll even brown in this state, so you have to use them right away. And the texture inside of the apple itself is kind of pulpy, and so it's really not good for apple pies. It's perfect for applesauce. My kids are 6 and 10, and they're definitely over the whole applesauce era, but I'm just gonna have to make some anyway and give them away. Well, that's enough yapping. I gotta get these zucchinis into the kitchen to make some double chocolate zucchini muffins before I head into town for swim lessons with my kids. They're swimming, not me. I hope I did the garden tour justice. We're getting ready to go to the beach, and I actually really have to get these in the oven right away. And sometimes I can gloss through things and not realizing that I'm missing key details. So if you have any questions about my forest floor gardening method and how my garden is doing, just leave it in the comments and I'll be sure to reply. So let's get started on these. I'm gonna link the recipe down below because I'm gonna actually rush through these so that we can make it to the beach on time. I really like showing people how we cook in the kitchen because sometimes we do substitutes and little tips and tricks that not everybody else does. And it's nice to see somebody doing that because then you think, oh, okay, I can do that. So I do little changes to recipes so that I'm adding more nutrients. So in this recipe, it calls for 1 cup of white flour, and I'm using 1 cup of milled wheat flour that I just milled. So right now the recipe calls for mixing the dry and mixing the wet, but I'm actually going to mix everything in one bowl, so I only have to dirty one dish. Now it takes 2 seconds to wash the other dish, but I think that there's a lot that you can do once you're sort of familiar with the rules of cooking and you think, you know what? I don't need 2 dishes. I'm gonna do it in 1 dish and see what happens. That's the oven preheated. And this recipe calls for avocado oil, olive oil, or coconut oil, but I'm gonna use butter, or you could use lard or tallow, although I definitely don't always recommend tallow because you can sometimes taste it. And using animal fats in your recipe actually adds fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. Adding vegetables to a baking recipe, I'm not actually adding it for nutrients. I'm adding it for color and texture, but I don't think adding veggies to this is really gonna add very many nutrients compared to the benefits you get from adding milled wheat and animal fats. Instead of a muffin tin liner, I'm gonna use butter and just take my little silicone guy and spread it around. Oh my God, muffins. That's it for the 60-day garden update, along with my double chocolate, super gooey zucchini muffins. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, you're welcome to like, subscribe, and also let me know in the comments if you have any questions about the garden. And in my future videos, I'll be doing one more garden update at the end of the summer, along with sharing more recipes where I add nutrients for my kids. Thanks for watching.